More units. We had Mark Mobius on. He said his favorite place now to invest is China.
That would make the leadership here very happy, and they would agree because they would say that the economic forecasts are quite rosy for this year. In terms of Russia and Ukraine, the Chinese foreign minister was speaking on the sidelines of a big parliamentary powwow that's going on here in Beijing, and he said that Beijing would continue to support mediation efforts between Ukraine and Russia while maintaining what he described as China's rock-solid relationship with Moscow. Now, the lawmakers are here to listen to various policymakers and leadership and leaders, including the premier Li Keqiang, who over the weekend had laid out the country's key economic targets. They say that the priority is stability for the year. And for economic growth, it's come in at about 5.5%. So that's lower than last year, but a little bit on the high end. About 3% for inflation. So that's the same as last year. A budget deficit at 2.8% of GDP. So that's lower than last year's figure of 3.2%. So the premier said that it's going to take a lot of what he described as arduous efforts to reach those goals. And if you look at just the figure of the fiscal deficit number, it looks as though it wouldn't necessarily reflect that. However, when you take a look at the whole, fiscal spending is going to be increased by about $316 billion. And that's the leaders said through profits of state firms as well as extra savings. The money that's going to be spent is going to be spent on tax cuts for SMEs and green development, new roads, highways, rail projects. HSBC said that they're very rosy about the outlook right now for investment in infrastructure. Consumption incentives. Also, most people believe that stricter policies for the property sector are going to be relaxed. Now, the premier stressed the need to invest for the long haul to ensure China's security. So on energy security, Beijing removed the hard targets for energy consumption. They said that they needed the flexibility. For food, he said that it's imperative that grain output stays above 650 million metric tons. And on defense, China increased its military budget by 7.1% to $230 billion. This is the fastest rise since 2019. And Joe, there was no change in policy towards tech regulation, no change on the COVID-19 protocols that have been roiling the global supply chain. But the premier did say that all of this is really meant to, what he said, set the stage for a big policy meeting, again, another big meeting later in the year, in the fall, when President Xi Jinping is expected to take an unprecedented third term.